George Daly, who died in the Vietnam War, will still stand at the middle school. Though most of us no longer see it every day, the inscription on the plaque reminds us all of their sacrifice. The inscription reads, "This tree is dedicated to our soldiers and sailors who died in the World War. They died so that freedom might not perish from the earth." The names of the soldiers are Edwin Baldwin, Guy Black, Warner Betcher, Wilbur Converse, Paul Florine, Edwin Fromatter, Henry Heese, Warren Longley, Walter Richards, and Arthur Starr. Bequeathed in perpetuity to the members of each senior class of the high school, who will preserve and care for it and thus keep green its branches in memory of these true sons of the Republic who nurtured the tree of liberty with their blood. The W.D. Horde Company provided the plate on the rock, which is set by the Nice Company of Jefferson. Bob Brewer, this town street commissioner in 1920, provided the rock himself. The fence around the rock is a memory of Terrence Beck, and the original flag flown above the memorial was given in memory of Gary Smith, both of whom died in the Vietnam War. Several plantings around the school grounds honor the lives of other Fort Atkinson students. This memorial not only serves to honor those who died in service, but also to inspire those currently serving for our country. They truly exemplify the stability, perseverance, and strength displayed by these original 10 soldiers as they continue to struggle for peace and freedom. For their dedication, I am deeply grateful. I ask now we bow our heads in a moment of silence to remember all of those who have lost their lives and those currently in the line of duty. Thank you. We will now listen to the members of the Black Hawk Choir, Women's Choir, and Chamber Choral perform Battle Hymn of the Republic.
would like to thank our distinguished guests for joining us here today. In attendance, we have veterans of the armed forces representing veteran organizations and currently enlisted members of the armed forces. Please join me in a round of applause, thanking them for their service and sacrifices. Representing the American Legion Post 166, Mr. Robert Erkey, escorted by Staff Sergeant Thomas Brooks of the United States Air Force. Representing the American Legion Auxiliary 166, Miss Norma Vorlab Erkey, escorted by Staff Sergeant Louis Dinda of the United States Army. Representing the veterans of foreign wars, posts 1879, Mr. Brian Kluver, escorted by Sergeant Justin Telfer of the U.S. Marine Corps. Private Telfer, my bad. Representing the veterans of foreign wars, Auxiliary 1879, Miss Helen O'Neill, escorted by Petty Officer and Class 2 Molly Schumacher of the U.S. Navy. Representing the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 39, Mr. Daniel Jude, escorted by Staff Sergeant Robert Parks of the Wisconsin Army National Guard. representing the Daughters of the American Revolution, Miss Pat Organ and Miss Jean Farley, escorted by Petty Officer Adam Schutz of the United States Navy. Representing the Vietnam Veterans, Chapter 409, and the Vietnam Veterans Associate Member, Mr. Steve Swader and Karen Swader, escorted by Sergeant Robert Park, Staff Sergeant Robert Park of the Wisconsin Army National Guard. Honored guests, thank you for joining us today. Please help me in a round of applause to acknowledge your hard work, dedication, and commitment to our country. We would also like to recognize our Fort Atkinson High School staff that have served our country in the military. Thank you to Mr. Dan Halverson, Mr. Patrick Hatlin, Mr. Manson Morris, Mr. Dennis Sherdeski, and Mr. Ron Filarski. Also, today we have the pleasure of having Wisconsin Representative Cody Horlacher and Senator Stephen Nass in attendance today. Lastly, I would like to have all future recruits, current servicemen, and former veterans stand as we all give you a well-deserved round of applause for your service to our country. At this time, I would like to introduce Class of 2017 Senior Class President Patrick Stiles to come forward and present the Rock Day Recognition Address.
Good morning. For the past 98 years, Fort Atkinson High School has paused to recognize the members of its graduating class who are entering the armed services. For the past 97 years, we have thanked them for their service and with due reverence, bid them good luck. Today, 98 years after this rock was bequeathed, I'd like to ask each and every one of you to withhold your praise for a moment and look at the figures before you. They are students like you and me, each with their own unique hopes, dreams, and ambitions. You see them in the hallways, in the lunchroom, and in your classes. For 18 years, these individuals have been members of our small community on the banks of the Rock River. But today, even though they stand in the same setting, we see them in a different light. Each and every one of them has made the decision to serve something greater than themselves. But what prompts such sacrifice? While words struggle to define why, history hearkens us to an answer. 45 past graduates of this high school have sacrificed their hopes, their dreams, and ultimately their lives so that future generations like us may prosper. To these individuals who, like us, were once students, this community of ours was worth fighting and ultimately dying for. Their devotion proves that this community of ours is worth protecting, and through their sacrifice, they endow our home with the very essence of its worth. Today, excuse me. Today, let us remind our classmates that they are and will continue to be part of this community wherever they are and whatever the circumstance. Our task is not to venerate or glorify these individuals. It is to remember them for who they are. Friends, classmates, and an integral part of our community. The dedication on this rock reads, "Bequeathed in perpetuity to the members of each senior class of the high school, who will preserve it and care for it, and thus keep its branches in memory of these true sons of the Republic, who nurtured the tree of liberty with their blood." Even though the world has changed, this rock and the community it stands for has not. It is our task to maintain this community we call home and make it worthy of those who gave their lives so that we may still call it that name. I have no doubt the class of 2018 will uphold the traditions of Rock Day at this school, and within its walls harbor the community that has so deeply impacted these individuals. Now, I'd like to call forth Junior Class President Manuel Martinez for the passing of the memorial.
Thank you all for being here. I am deeply honored to stand with you today on behalf of the class of 2018 to commemorate those who have made brave sacrifices for the benefit of our nation. It is my pleasure to be able to sustain the honor, respect, and tradition that Rock Day brings here at Fort Atkinson High School. On this day, we take the time to observe those who have fought and fallen to defend what we treasure. On this day, we reflect on those individuals who heroically and instinctually risked life and limb in the face of grave danger, with great pride and determination. We know that without their bravery, courage, and determination, we would not be able to live as we do. Therefore, we are indebted to those who have served, those who are currently serving, and those about to. Navy vet Jack Crawford, who was serving aboard the USS Yorktown when it was sunk during the Battle of... There aren't many things you can take out of this planet, but some you can take with you. Wherever you go, consciousness of duty, faithfully performed. This shows the... This mentioned duty calls for soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors, and Coast Guardsmen to put their lives on the line. We cannot attempt to fathom what it is like to endure what these men and women voluntarily go through. Every single name upon this rock served faithfully and to their fullest. Behind these names lie great strength, honor, and dignity. Keep them in your minds today, and their families and friends in your heart. It is because of their extensive assemblage of sacrifices our country has remained safe and free. Today, we admire our classmates who have made the courageous decision to protect our country. Each of them has taken it upon him or herself to serve to their fullest. These individuals devote their lives to defend their brothers and sisters and their country. Former President Barack Obama once remarked, "No other country in the world does what we do. On every issue, the world turns to us. Not simply because of the size of our economy or our military might, but because of the ideals we stand for and the burdens we bear to advance them." And that is exactly what these individuals have dedicated themselves to. Defending the greatness of this country and ideals set long for future generations to come. They are so much more than we can ever hope to give. This rock has remained within this ever-changing world. It is the duty of the class of 2018 to uphold this tradition which began 98 years ago. I would ask each and every one of you for your aid in this undertaking, not because it is easy, not because we are asked to, but because it is our responsibility, because we must. This tradition not only connects the community and students to the past, but obligates us to the future as well. I will leave you with this quote from John F. Kennedy. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. Now I'd like to call forward Owen Warden to present the students of class of 2017 who will be entering the armed service. Thank you.
On this Rock Day, not only must we recognize former students of Fort Atkinson High School, but we must also look to the future and appreciate the dedicated students who will constitute our armed forces in the years to come. This year, the class of 2017 is privileged to have several individuals who will be entering the military upon graduation. The 14 students we will recognize will carry on the tradition of selfless service to our nation that so many Fort Atkinson High School graduates have been part of through the years of peace and conflict. As I call your name, I would like to ask that each student please stand, and as we recognize your selfless dedication as you commit to protecting our nation's freedom, security, and future. Dylan Block. Son of Hope and Barry Block, Dylan is entering the United States Army. Dylan is entering the service because he loves his country, and it is an opportunity for him to grow as a person. Anthony Bertram, son of Victoria Bertram and Dennis Agan. Anthony is entering the National Guard. Anthony believes it will get him a head start in life for his daughter and himself. Nicholas Chapin, son of Veronica and Matt Chapin. Nicholas is entering the United States Air Force. Nicholas to serve his country and better himself physically and mentally. Pawlowski. Zach entering the United States Marine Corps. Zach wants to become stronger physically and mentally, and he wants to be a part of something bigger than himself. Derek Heydrich, son of Tina and Barry Heydrich. Derek is entering the National Guard, and Derek is joining the service because he wants to serve his country and be a part of something bigger than himself. Jonathan Hoffman, son of Eric and Sarah Hoffman. Jonathan is entering the National Guard, and he wants to follow in his father's footsteps, and he always felt that he should give back by defending the greatest country in the world. Tayden Punzel, son of Michelle Punzel. Tayden is entering the United States Army. Tayden has had over 100 years of military service in his family, and he felt as if it was an obligation to join the military to continue that lineage and serve his country. Devin Riggs, son of Jennifer and Steve Riggs. Devin is entering the United States Air Force. He wants to do his part for his country, and he wants to give back to those who have given so much to him and to those who have sacrificed everything for his freedom. Casey Stanley, son of Deb J. and Robert Stanley. Casey is entering the United States Army. It has always been a dream of Casey's to serve in the military. John Stewart, son of Scott Stewart. John is entering the National Guard. He is looking for a great career and to gain leadership skills. Wade Sykes, son of Mark and Deb Sykes. Wade is entering the National Guard. He wants to serve his country and to better himself physically and mentally. Tyler Troutman, son of Tom and Kathy Troutman. Tyler is entering the United States Marine Corps. Tyler not only chose to join the military because he wanted to serve his country, but he also wanted to make himself a better person and to prove to himself that he can do things that he never thought possible. Sam Wiesenberg, son of Susan Wiesenberg. Samuel is entering the National Guard. Samuel's reason is that he wants to protect the state and to challenge himself. Zach Yang, son of Sol and Mang Yang. Zach is entering the National Guard. He wants to serve his country and to repay those that have served before us. If you have the opportunity to see Dylan, Anthony, Nicholas, Zach, Derek, Jonathan, Tayden, Kevin, Devin, Casey, John, Wade, Tyler, Samuel, and Zach in the hallways during passing time or at lunch over the last weeks of school, I encourage you to take the time to thank them. These students are all unique individuals to the class of 2017, and in their times of service, we hope they will use life lessons and experiences at Fort Atkinson High School to better serve our country. No doubt these will face challenges in the years to come, but thankfully they all share common bonds of Fort Atkinson High School and the commitment to duty, honor, and country. They represent the best this school and America have to offer, and their service will help ensure our continued ability to live in freedom for generations to come. As we are constantly reminded these days, preserving this freedom oftentimes entails hardships and personal sacrifice. But these individuals are willing to step forward and take on the challenges. At this time, join me in acknowledging and thanking Dylan, Anthony, Nicholas, Zach, Derek, Jonathan, Tayden, Devin, Casey, John, Wade, Tyler, Samuel, and Zach for their future service in the United States Army military. Thank you. I would like to invite Molly Baird to the podium.
In a few moments, you will hear taps performed by Eric Sell and Dawson Rodinez of the Fort Atkinson High School Band. In 1862, this composition gained popularity as the tune that signified the end of the day on both the Union and Confederate side. 12 years later, the United States Army officially recognized this composition. Around the beginning of the American Civil War, Captain John C. Tidwell sought to honor a fallen soldier. Due to a nearby enemy encampment, Captain Tidwell could not fire the traditional 3-volley salute. In light of this, he decided to honor his fallen man with the playing of taps during the burial. Since then, TAPS has become customary to honor fallen soldiers all across the United States. In present day, it is the highest honor to be memorialized with a 3-volley salute and the playing of taps. I would now like to welcome Riley Walter to the podium to introduce the placement of flags by our seniors going into service.
"45 flags will be placed around the rock, and each senior entering into the armed forces will place an equal amount of flags around the rock. I will read the names of these soldiers from Fort Atkinson who gave their lives for our freedom. Please remain silent as the flags are placed in their honor. 2 flags represent those who died in the Civil War. Thomas Butler and Edwin Skinner. 10 flags represent those who died in World War I. Edwin Baldwin, Guy Black, Werner Botcher, Paul Florine, Edwin Fromater, Henry Heese, Warren Longley, Walter Richards, George Sauer, and Fred Steer. "22 flags represent those who died in World War II. Arthur Benson, Joseph Billett, Howard Buchanan, Victor Drager, Sydney Dye, George Eckert, Gerald Endel, Ellsworth Evanson, Lester Guess, Garth Godfrey, Robert Grant, Rodney Green, Herbert Gumbel, Arthur Hessel, Robert Carnes, Jack Kellen, Delmar Kiesling, Gerald Krecklau, Helmer Krecklau, Raymond Lehman, Ruben Lemke, and finally Carl Lewis. 4 flags represent those who died in the Korean War. Robert Lubke, Douglas Mass, Richard McNitt, and Irving Shuett. 6 flags represent those who died in the Vietnam War. Terrence Beck, George Daly, Charles Huff, Larry Smith, Gary Smith, and Andrew Kirchmeyer. 1 flag represents one who died in the war in Afghanistan. Jacob Meinert. At this time, I would like to invite Private First Class Justin Telfer from the U.S. Marine Corps to place the POW and MIA flags in honor of those servicemen and women. We ask for your continued respect and silence. Following the placement of the flag, we will have a rifle salute by the Fort Atkinson American Legion and then the playing of taps.
In closing, thank you for being a part of our annual Rock Day celebration. I'd like to give a special thank you to the Fort Atkinson High School Music Department under the direction of Mr. Tony Kading and Mr. Craig Engstrom. I would also like to thank our Student Senate for the thoughtful work they put in to present to you today. To Mr. Geffert, Mrs. Lyon, and all of our students that helped landscape the area in the front for this morning's event, I'd also like to thank you for your organization assistance as well as your hard work. To the FAHS custodial and building and ground staff for the amazingly fast work of setting up for this event this morning. To the family and friends of our enlisting seniors. Your support and dedication of their future goals helps their dreams become realities. Students of FAHS, I couldn't be more proud to stand before you and witness the pride and respect you have given as young men and women. You demonstrate the very best of what our high school represents. To our enlisting seniors, please know how incredibly all of us are, the decisions you have made and the impact you will have on the future of not only our community but our great nation. To me, you are our heroes, and I'm very grateful for your selfless time and dedication to our country. Thank you again for attending, and at this time, students, you may report to your 4-5 class. Have a great day.